When my husband told me to get out over a burnt dinner, I thought he'd lost his mind. But when a woman showed up at my door the next morning with suitcases and a key to my house, I realized the eviction wasn't random. It was calculated, and I was about to make him regret every single second of it. You know that feeling when you think you've built something solid? When you look around at your life and think, yeah, I did this. I worked for this. That's where I was. My name is Janelle. I'm 34 years old, and I thought I had it all figured out. I met Garrett 6 years ago at a charity event. He was charming, confident, had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We got married within a year, and honestly, I thought I'd won the lottery. He managed a car dealership, made decent money, and seemed genuinely proud of what I did, working from home as a graphic designer, building my own client base, making my own way. But here's the thing nobody tells you about marriage. It's easy to miss the small changes, the way someone's kiss becomes routine instead of passionate, the way conversations shift from dreams to just logistics. Garrett and I had fallen into that space, you know? We weren't fighting, we weren't even really unhappy, we were just existing. And I told myself that was normal. That's what marriage becomes after a few years, right? Comfortable, safe, predictable. The house we lived in, that was mine, not ours, mine. My grandmother left it to me when she passed, 2 years before I even met Garrett. It was a beautiful 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that held memories in every corner. My grandmother raised me in that house after my parents died. It wasn't just property to me, it was legacy. It was love in the form of walls and a roof. When Garrett and I got married, I never added his name to the deed, not because I didn't trust him, but because, I don't know, something in me wanted to keep that one thing as mine. My grandmother's voice, maybe, whispering in my ear to hold on to what's yours. That particular evening started like any other Wednesday. I'd been on back-to-back calls with a major client, some tech startup that wanted a complete rebrand, and they wanted it yesterday. I was exhausted, creatively drained, and honestly just trying to hold it together. I figured I'd make something quick for dinner, nothing fancy. Chicken, rice, some vegetables, simple. But while I was plating everything, my client called again with last-minute changes, and I got distracted. The chicken stayed on the heat too long. Not burnt to charcoal or anything dramatic, just overcooked, dry, the kind of mistake anyone makes when they're juggling too much. Garrett walked through the door right as I was pulling the pan off the stove. I greeted him with a tired smile, apologized about the chicken being a little overdone, and asked about his day. He didn't answer. He just stood there, staring at the plate I'd set on the table, and I watched his jaw tighten. That's when I felt it, something cold sliding down my spine, something that told me this wasn't about chicken at all. I barely slept at my sister's Rochelle's apartment that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Garrett's voice, cold, detached, telling me to get out like I was some stranger who'd overstayed her welcome. But morning came, and with it a stubborn determination. I wasn't going to let one bad night define 6 years of marriage. We'd talk, we'd work through whatever was eating at him. I drove back home around 9 in the morning, rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd stay calm and reasonable. That's when I saw the silver SUV in my driveway. I didn't recognize it. For a second, I thought maybe Garrett had a work friend over, or maybe someone from the dealership dropped something off. I parked on the street and sat there for a moment, confusion prickling at the back of my neck. Then the driver's side door opened and a woman stepped out. She was younger than me, maybe early 30s, with box braids pulled into a high ponytail and designer sunglasses perched on her head. She moved with purpose, confident, like she belonged there. I watched her open the trunk and start pulling out suitcases. Not one, not two, 4 large suitcases, the kind you pack when you're moving somewhere permanently. My heart started pounding as she rolled them toward my front door, and then, I swear my brain short-circuited, she pulled out a key, my key. She unlocked my door like she'd done it 1,000 times before and started dragging the suitcases inside. I was out of my car before I even realized I was moving. "Excuse me," my voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. "Who are you and what are you doing in my house?" She turned around, and I'll never forget the look on her face. Not guilt, not embarrassment, confusion, like I was the one out of place. She smiled, actually smiled at me and said, "I'm Shanice, Garrett's fiancée, and you are?" Fiancé? The word hit me like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "What are you talking about? I'm his wife. That's my house." Shanice's smile faded, replaced with something like pity mixed with irritation. "Look, I don't know what Garrett told you, but he explained everything to me. You're the tenant who's been renting month to month, and you got a little attached. He asked you to leave, and now you're making this difficult." Tenant? I actually laughed. It was either that or scream. I own this house. My grandmother left it to me when she passed, 2 years before I even met Garrett. It's not a tenant, I'm not obsessed, and I'm definitely not leaving. I tried to push past her, but she stepped in front of the doorway, blocking me. That's when Garrett appeared behind her, his arm sliding around her waist like this was the most natural thing in the world. He looked at me with mock sympathy, the kind you'd give a lost dog. "Janelle, I asked you nicely yesterday. The house is mine now. If you don't leave, I'll have to call the police." Mine? My house? I felt the ground tilt beneath me. I sat in Rochelle's apartment, staring at nothing, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the cup of tea she'd forced into my hands. My sister paced back and forth, her paralegal brain already shifting into overdrive. "Okay, breathe. Just breathe and tell me everything again," she said, her voice steady even though I could see the rage simmering in her eyes. So I did. I told her about the SUV, about Shanice with her suitcases and her key, about Garrett calling my grandmother's house his, about all my documents, the deed, the inheritance papers, everything were locked inside that house where I couldn't get to them. Rochelle stopped pacing and looked at me hard. "Do you have anything, any proof at all that the house is yours?" That's when I remembered. Email. The inheritance lawyer had sent me everything digitally when Grandma passed. I grabbed my laptop with trembling fingers and started searching through old emails, going back 7 years. And there it was, every single document, every piece of paper proving that house was mine and mine alone. Garrett's name had never been on anything, not the deed, not the mortgage that was paid off before I even met Garrett, nothing. Rochelle pulled up the county property records website and we searched the address together. Clear as day, Janelle Morrison, sole owner. No Garrett, no joint ownership, nothing. "He's committing fraud," Rochelle said quietly. "He illegally evicted you from your own property, and he's probably planning to forge documents or pull some other scheme. We need to move fast, but we need to be smart." Over the next 2 days, I became someone I didn't recognize. I parked down the street from my own house and watched Garrett and Shanice through the windows, laughing, cooking in my kitchen, sleeping in my bed. I took pictures of everything, time-stamped, dated, clear evidence. And the more I watched, the more I saw. Shanice was wearing my jewelry, my grandmother's pearl earrings that I kept in my dresser. That's when the heartbreak turned into something else, something cold and calculated. I started digging into Shanice's social media. Her profiles were public, and what I found made my blood run cold. Photos of her and Garrett dating back 8 months. 8 months! Dinner dates, weekend trips, hotel rooms, captions about my king and building our future together. One post from 2 weeks ago showed her holding up a key, my house key, with the caption, "Finally moving into our dream home." The comments were full of congratulations, heart emojis, people celebrating her happiness. My hands clenched into fists. But the worst part? I found posts where her friends asked about the situation with his wife, and Shanice had responded, "He's handling it. She'll be gone soon." She knew. She knew I existed, and she didn't care. Rochelle found me at my laptop at 2 in the morning, tears streaming down my face. "We're going to destroy him," she said simply, "both of them, but we're going to do it right." The inheritance lawyer's office smelled like old books and expensive coffee. Mr. Patterson had handled my grandmother's estate, and when I explained what Garrett had done, his face went from professional sympathy to genuine anger. "This is criminal," he said, shuffling through the documents I'd brought. "Illegal eviction, fraud, theft of property. We're not just talking civil court here, Janelle. This is police territory." He made a call right there, and within an hour, I was sitting across from Officer Linda Chin, recounting the entire nightmare while she took notes. "We can go in right now if you want," Officer Chin said. "Arrest him for trespassing and theft, get you back in your house today." But something in me resisted. I didn't just want my house back. I wanted Garrett to feel exactly what I felt, that moment of absolute shock when your world flips upside down and you realize the person you trusted has been playing you for a fool. "I want to wait," I told them. 3 days. Give me 3 days to set this up properly. Rochelle squeezed my hand under the table, understanding immediately what I was planning. I created a fake email address, made it look official, something generic like Metro Property Dispute Resolution Services. Then I crafted a message to Garrett explaining that due to a conflict over property ownership, both parties needed to be present at mediation at the disputed address. I made it sound bureaucratic, tedious, like something he could easily manipulate in his favor. And because Garrett's ego was as big as his lies, he responded within an hour, agreeing to the meeting. He probably thought he could intimidate me with forged papers or sheer arrogance. He had no idea what was coming. While I waited, I kept digging. I checked our joint bank account, the one I'd barely looked at in months because I trusted him to manage his own finances. $53,000. Gone. Transferred out in increments over the past 8 months, all going to an account under Shanice's name. My hand shook as I screenshotted every single transaction. He hadn't just stolen my house, he'd been stealing my money to fund his affair. Then Rochelle's friend who worked at Garrett's dealership called me and said, "Janelle, I don't know if you want to hear this, but..." She paused, and I could hear the discomfort in her voice. "Garrett's been telling everyone here that you died 6 months ago. Cancer," he said. "He's been playing the grieving widower, getting sympathy, using it to explain why he's been distracted at work." I actually laughed. It was either that or throw my phone across the room. He'd killed me, erased me, replaced me with Shanice in a manufactured tragedy, all while I was alive and working from the home he was stealing. The night before the confrontation, I couldn't sleep. I laid everything out. Printed documents, screenshots, photos, bank statements. Rochelle sat with me, organizing it all into folders. "You ready for this?" she asked. I looked at the evidence of Garrett's betrayal spread across her dining room table and felt something shift inside me. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The morning air felt electric as I pulled up to my house, with Rochelle in the passenger seat, Mr. Patterson in his car, and 2 police cruisers following close. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my hands were steady. I'd waited 3 days for this moment, and I wasn't going to waste 1 second of it. Officer Chin stepped first, adjusting her belt, and gave me a small nod. "Ready?" I nodded back, grabbing my folder of evidence like it was a weapon. Garrett answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, coffee mug in hand, looking relaxed and comfortable in my home. When he saw the police, his face went blank, then confused, then something close to panic flashed in his eyes before he locked it down. "What's going on?" He tried to sound annoyed instead of terrified. Mr. Patterson stepped forward, his voice crisp and professional. "Mr. Morrison, this is regarding the illegal eviction and current trespassing of Mrs. Janelle Morrison from her property. This home is solely owned by her, as documented with the county and her grandmother's estate." I walked past Garrett, actually shouldered past him, into my own living room. Shanice was on the couch, wearing my robe, eating cereal from my bowls, and when she saw the entourage behind me, she jumped up, spilling milk everywhere. "What the hell is this? You can't just barge in here." Her voice was shrill, indignant. I turned to face her, and I swear I'd never felt more powerful in my entire life. "This is my house, Shanice, my name on the deed, my grandmother's legacy. Check it yourself." I handed the property documents to Officer Chin, who showed them to both Garrett and Shanice. Garrett's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "This is a misunderstanding. We can work this out." But I was done listening to him talk. I pulled out my phone and started reading aloud from Shanice's Instagram posts, the ones where she bragged about moving into our dream home and called Garrett her king. Shanice's confident expression crumbled with every word. Then I turned to her directly, my voice steady and cold. "He told you he owned this house, didn't he? He told you I was just some crazy tenant." She looked at Garrett, and I watched the realization wash over her face. "You said this was your house. You said she was—" Garrett reached for her, desperation creeping in his voice. "Baby, listen, I can explain." That's when I dropped the final bomb. "He also told everyone at his job that I died 6 months ago. Cancer. He's been playing the grieving widower while planning to move you into the home his very alive wife owns." Shanice's face went from confusion to pure rage in seconds. She spun toward Garrett, and before anyone could react, her hand cracked across his face so hard the sound echoed through the room. "You liar!" she screamed. "Don't you ever contact me again." She started grabbing her things frantically, clothes, toiletries, anything she could reach. Officer Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Mr. Morrison, you're being charged with illegal eviction, theft, and fraud. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Watching Garrett get handcuffed in my living room felt surreal, like I was watching a movie instead of living my actual life. He didn't fight it, didn't argue. He just stared at me with pure hatred as the metal clicked around his wrists. And right before they let him out, I stepped close enough that only he could hear me. "You wanted me out of this house? Now you're out. Permanently." His jaw clenched, but he had nothing to say. For once in his manipulative life, Garrett was speechless. Shanice left without another word, her suitcases rolling loudly across the hardwood floors my grandmother had refinished decades ago. I watched through the window as she loaded her silver SUV, mascara running down her face. And honestly, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered her posts, her comments about me being gone soon, and the sympathy evaporated. She knew enough. She chose to participate. The consequences were hers to carry. The first thing I did after everyone left was change every single lock. Rochelle helped me go through the entire house, room by room, reclaiming what was mine. We found more of my stolen jewelry hidden in Garrett's sock drawer, pieces from my grandmother I didn't even realize were missing. We found documents he'd been practicing forging, my signature written over and over on blank papers like some deranged homework assignment. Everything became evidence, carefully photographed and cataloged. 3 weeks later, the divorce papers were filed. Because of the theft from our joint account and the fraud, my lawyer assured me I'd get everything, and I did. Garrett's wages were garnished to pay back every cent he'd stolen, plus damages. The dealership fired him immediately when the dead wife story came out, and his reputation in the industry was destroyed. Nobody wants to hire a man who fakes his wife's death and commits fraud. He ended up in a studio apartment across town, working part-time at a tire shop, facing potential jail time. But here's the karma twist I never saw coming. 2 months after everything went down, Shanice reached out via email, a long, rambling apology where she admitted Garrett had done this before, 10 years ago, to another woman in another city. She'd found out through her own digging after our confrontation destroyed her trust in him completely. She even posted a video on TikTok exposing him as a con artist, and it went viral, millions of views. Garrett couldn't show his face anywhere without someone recognizing him as that scammer guy. Meanwhile, my graphic design business exploded. 3 major clients found me after hearing my story, wanting to support a woman who fought back. I started a blog helping other women recognize financial abuse, and the response was overwhelming. My grandmother's house, my sanctuary, my legacy was mine again, truly and completely. And every morning when I wake up in my bedroom, in my home, I remember Garrett standing in this exact spot, telling me to get out.